Good morning, everybody. Actually, I think everything is interconnected. I used to be a super rational person, a lot of logic and result orientation. And I can't say that I had to learn the hard way that intuition is very important as well. But it was not easy to accept that for me. Mathematics, that was my thing. And then somehow I went into this agility where people started talking about how important it is to be capable of estimating just by following your gut feeling. And for me, it was like, what do you mean? Like, I know how much, what is the exact amount of time I need to do something. And then you start realizing that actually we have some beliefs that we stick to. They are not accurate. Like the real life many times show us that it's not as we think it is, or it's not as we even would loved it to be. So my job today is to take us to this journey of agility a bit further in terms of implementation. Like, okay, the concept is there. We'll build up, on a context or on an ecosystem. But I will try to give an answer, like what is the thing we can do actually to live up to the concept of agility and to change, for sure, the direct environment, our personal life even, and maybe to influence further up or further in parallel to our departments, other people to do the same thing. So what I'm going to talk about today actually gives you power to make change, because it doesn't depend on anybody. It depends only on your own will and on your own skill. So my job today is to convince you, to build up on the will, and to give you some tools and some information that will give you the skill and the license to start. Like, you can for sure start. Okay, so let's start sharing the screen. I feel very passionate about this topic, I have to say. You can see the topic, it's this strange word, Kanban method. Sounds like totally non-loving. I didn't like it when I saw it for the first time. Why do you feel passionate? When we talked about this while preparing for this workshop, in agility, you know what works, what doesn't work, because ideal situations are there and they're there to guide us. And then you try to implement that and you know that it will not work because it's ideal, right? So you have to find your way on how to be capable of evolving towards the ideal that you will never achieve. And we talked about that and we said, okay, let's talk about Kanban. Kanban has that evolutionary essence in its, that evolutionary, let's say, drive. And before we get into specifics, I will tell you just one thing. Kanban means nothing more like card. Actually, it's a card. It's a card with something written on it. So, are we ready? I need to hear you now.
Yes.
Yes, more yeses. Let's say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so my first question for you is, what do you see here? And I would really love you to talk.
Sketch.
Yes.
MVP. Sketch.
MVP, like failed MVP.
I see a centaur.
The team ran out of budget.
Yeah.
I see someone who is trying to achieve perfection.
Someone with a lack of sleep started to paint and then just accidentally fall asleep.
Or Someone who's working from home and their child finished their drawing.
Perfect. So, if you have more ideas, write those down. So this is an illustration we use, obviously, to illustrate something we call the waterfall. And you had the opportunity to hear about the waterfall from Cheney and also from Tamara. But let me just explain it while we are watching this, looking at this illustration. So what happens and what happened to the world before we all went mad about agility was this approach that we call waterfall. Why do we call it waterfall? Because it was an answer to a huge crisis brought up by a development of technology after the Second World War. And the answer was, okay, let's try to put some order in how we develop stuff that depends on technology. And the answer was this waterfall, meaning the water falls down step by step, and it falls down and there's no way back. So once we start designing something and we go into developing that something, and then we go into making that something, and then we go into delivering that something, there's no way back. So that's the metaphor. And if we made a mistake at the level of the design or at the level of
Jasmina,
We can't hear you.
So maybe it's with your headphones again, the challenge. So you were saying the last thing we heard is there is no way back once you start designing something. We hear you now. Oh, the last thing you said, once you start designing, there's no way back.
There's no way back. So you go through these phases and the water falls down, and you go together with the water that falls down, and then at the end, when the mistake is detected, the only thing you can actually do is look back and say, well, that was not my fault, you know, and you start blaming other people because it's very expensive at the end, and someone has to be responsible. So that's the waterfall.
But we can also understand it, Jasmina, from two perspectives. Like either we can get crashed if the waterfall is like very fast, or we can have this buzzword from new normal, but even before, like go with the flow.
Go with the flow, yeah. We were talking about the flow. Actually, flow is much more interesting than this waterfall. What happens here, this is a typical project management, right? You start with these green fields. The horse look perfect at the beginning because everything is on paper and it's really easy on paper. You write down your specifications, you have big plans, you can be very ambitious because paper can take it all. And then you start implementing what you initially designed. And then the green grass starts to go into like yellowish, but no one wants to be to send bad news to the bosses or to the managers, right? So we try to do our best and to make it green as much as we can. But then the time passes by and the yellowish turns into orange and the orange turns into red. So you start in the green with the paper, everything nicely written and put up. And then you end up with something that looks like this funny horse and its head. Like you did make something, but it's far from what was desired or wanted or even planned. So this is a metaphor of this waterfall, old-fashioned project development. And we know it doesn't work. So now I'm going to split you into pairs with one question or one desire I have for you.
Jasmina, just to maybe add opinion on this. So in most of the cases, the systems, in particular in public administrations, still the highest extent resonate what waterfall management is and or is about. So I guess during these presentations, we would also hear a bit how we can enter the transformation in order not to make to minimize the risks of reluctancy, rejection, huge stress. I mean, there is a lot of change management and also crisis management in this stuff. And I guess the final presentation for tomorrow, well-being, will be our ultimate goal. So you will also give us a kind of tips how we can actually omit this all thinking in order to get the benefits of the Kanban, of the entire Agile concept, in order to get this type of easiness at work and actually at life. I have understood this philosophy is also something that quite applies to all segments of life, not necessarily only professional.
Exactly. Thank you, Warren, for that. So my idea now for this paired discussion is actually to ask you one thing. I'm pretty much sure you had a project like this. I'm pretty much sure we all participated in some format of this green grass going into red alarms. My question for you is to talk with your pair and to explain one thing. How did it feel? How did you feel? Like, look for the word. What was the feeling you had in whatever the phase of this process of going like super enthusiastic into something and then ending up with something that you had to blame somebody or somebody had to blame you, or you just were like, we didn't do it. So let's talk about just one thing, feelings. How did you feel? So I will ask somebody to...
So waterfall management is what we are talking about. The case is designated to this concept. Yep.
Exactly. How did you feel when you had a super great project, everything was perfect on paper, you were the member of the team, you were even leading the project, and then it ended up in something that you didn't want? Okay? You see, it is about people. Whatever we do, we make products, we make projects. But at the end, one, if not the most important part of the results and the success is how do we feel? That is what happened in the history of the agility. People that made products for clients and for enterprises felt awful because the way of work was so wrong that they would make damage to the clients. They would make them go into bankruptcy because they were not fit for purpose. So companies that delivered at that time software were not happy at all. And when I say at that time, and I think history is really important because we learn from history, at least not in order to repeat the history repeating and its mistakes. What happened in the second part of the 20th century was, and it was the after the Second World War, was this innovation in terms of we have to rebuild, we have to make this work, the world, and two industries specifically took the lead. One of those was Toyota, the automotive industry, and I guess you know that. And the other one was the programming, the software development, but not only in the companies that are like commercial companies, mostly in the military. So what did Toyota? Toyota did something crucial to whatever we know today, not only in terms of agility, but in many other concepts that we take for granted. One of the things they did, they introduced this concept of flow. And you can see here at this slide the comparison between the rally race and the Scrum. And I really want you to understand why the word Scrum is there. It comes from the rugby. It comes from this formation of people working together towards the goal. Like really hardworking. You can see them. Like they are in this position of strong fight for the ball that will be introduced by the guy that stands here at the side. And they all fight for the same thing. So they all collaborate in order to bring the ball to the goal. A very specific game. Why specific? Because metaphorically, it tells you first throw the ball backwards, then forward. So first fail. So that's the metaphor. Then learn from that and then go forward. When Toyota introduced these huge changes in its automotive factories, in its processes, one of the things some university professors did, they compared in a super famous article that I will share with you, after the workshop, in case you want to read it, how the teams worked before and how the teams should work as in Toyota. So how the teams worked before was metaphorically said like the rally race, the siloed way of working. My department does this, and then it hands over to your department, and then there's a gap, and then your department hands it over to next department. So that's a waterfall way of working, where you have a lot of gaps in between. And one of the things that are very important in this waterfall concept that is wrong is that at the gaps, if you fail, there's no one, if you fail to catch it, right? Or if you fail to understand what has been communicated to you, or what is exactly the requirement, then there's no one else to help at that wasted land. And no one actually is allowed, because there's no silo for let's help, with the communication when the communication fails us. Do you see what I mean? If you do, you can say yes, you can show, I can see you now. This concept is super important, it's metaphorical. So Toyota introduced this way of working, and I will give you an example that we are all very familiar with it. The example is described in this book. So I'm sorry if I have a lot of books here to recommend. I'm an educator, so I always have books with me. But these books are really handpicked books. Like if you read those, you won't regret. So the book is this is Lean. The young man on the left describes what Toyota did in its time, like when they become super efficient. And if you look at the subtitle, it says resolving the efficiency paradox. And Dean has talked about paradoxes, right? Like these paradigm shifts. The same thing, the same drawing. If you look at it through one type of lens, you see one thing. But if you look at it at a different angle or a different viewpoint, you see a different thing. So what they did there, they described the process, and they called it flow efficiency. And I will walk you now through the story that we all know, and that's the story they described there. They talked about cancer patients, and it's precisely breast cancer patients. There was a huge research they described there. And they say what happened when you go through the health system, when the system is organized as like resourcefully efficient, like everybody does its job, everything is fully used. Everybody works 8 hours a day. And what happens in the systems that are organized according to the principle of flow efficiency? So imagine one day, somebody, I won't say you and me, they say it's not good. Somebody wakes up and senses something like the breast. And normally what happens, people get scared. So what they were interested in, how many days or how many months, or what is the time that passes by from the moment we get scared to the moment we get diagnosed, or even to the moment we get cured. So in the systems that are organized as resource efficient systems, what happens is, you can tell me. So we wake up, we do that, and then we go where? Where do we enter the healthcare system? What is the point of entrance?
Can you repeat the question?
You get scared, so you have something on your breast and you want to go to the doctor. So what is the first door you have to knock on? In all the health systems, normally it would be the primary
connection. Find connection. Somebody who is familiar with the doctors.
Yeah, that would exactly. That's the workaround. But normally, the healthcare system tells you, you go to your lekar opšte prakse or the generalist, right? The primary healthcare. So you go to Dom Zdravlja or this primary healthcare institute. What happens there? There you say what happens. They see it's a complex thing, or it needs further examination by some specialist, right? So normally they will give you something we call uput, and I'm not sure how to say that in English, but they will direct you. You know, they will give you a paper and tell you.
Referral.
So you go there to the specialist. What you do, you step in. If you're lucky, you don't have to wait in a queue, right? To make queue. Then you step out. Then you walk on the margins of the healthcare system, just so you can enter again and pass the door to a specialist. Then you get examined. Then you have to step out. Then what happens next? Once you get examined, let's say by pulmonologist or by gynecologist, what's the next step?
Back to your GP.
Yeah, back to your doctor, medical doctor, like the first one, or
well, you have a diagnosis and a suggestion for therapy. Yes.
It depends, because it may be complex. Maybe you need to see the specialists such as pulmonology as well, or endocrinology.
And take tests. Yeah. Okay.
Tests, exactly. So many times, and we're not exactly sure, you know, who guides us on that margin. Many times we have to step in and step out, and then the diagnosis, most of the time, gets done at the end, right? So just at the end, and you are very scared and very confused as a patient. And you ask, as Goran said, like for some connections, you want second opinion, third opinion. And then there's this formation at the end of the process that actually makes the diagnosis and decides on therapy. Do you know what is the name of that? It's a team of people that gathers at the end of the process and says, okay, let's do
a consilium.
Yeah. Exactly. That's a consilium. So it's a cross-functional team of medical doctors, specialists, professionals that talk with each other only at the end. And we know that at the end, it can be too late, or at least if they had talked before, like at the beginning, maybe the end result would have been much better. So that's what Toyota did. Toyota said, let's make it upside down. Let's have these professional, cross-functional, super specialist team at the beginning of whatever we do, because then it's going to be much better and, imagine, much cheaper. So it's better, it's shorter, it's more efficient, and it's cheaper. And the system does what it has to do. The systems look at you as a valuable part of it, like you are important. It's not the system that is important. You see what I mean? Does this make sense?
Yes. Also, it brings about diversity of perspectives.
So they call it flow efficiency. And that's the concept of these agile cross-functional teams. The teams of people that not sit in the silos, you know, like all financial people sit in one department, all legal people sit in a different department, all policy people in a third department. I don't know what the departments are, but it's cross-functional. You have people from different departments sitting together, gathered around producing value. And
thank you, Jasmina, for this. Once again, I remind everyone that we started the first day with the quality management, and Toyota exactly is based this example on total quality. And just a short question for you. Can you make a kind of explanation what's the relation between Lean, Scrum, and Agile? just to, because we are bombed with the new concepts, and in order to understand and to digest where does belong to each of those and how do they correspond, can you just refer to this?
Absolutely, and gladly.
Understand why.
Yes, and why we are here.
We are now actually differentiating. Yesterday we were completely oriented towards the Agile concept, and also Cheney had this type. So now we have another two more or less concepts that you have introduced to us, including Kanban model. Talked about yesterday.
So what happened was that Toyota introduced this way of thinking called Lean. And it doesn't have to do with innovation or development or creation. It has to do with one simple thing: efficiency. And you probably have heard, and we were going to have an exercise about 7 Toyota's wastes. So when they looked at their process, they identified 7 types of wastes. Where do we waste our time? Where do we waste our energy? And they did everything possible to eliminate that. So the principles behind that behavior are called Lean, and that's the Lean thinking. And there is a lot of things you can learn from there. But the essence is the efficiency of the manufacturing, the efficiency of delivering. Then after that, there is this software industry. And now I will just say ... Bear with me. We will get there in, let's say, 5 minutes, okay? Or even before that. What happens next? You remember that I said this article written by Toyota's Tokyo University professors in the second half of the 20th century. So it was a very important article. And the article is called The New Product Development Game. And it's not a typo, it's on purpose, the new Product Development Game. And that was the first time in 1986 that the word Scrum was used to describe the Toyota's cross-functional teams that were super efficient, like no waste. And that word and the article has been read by a guy called Jack Sutherland, who invented the first, or at least the most popular Agile methodology ever, called Scrum. But he was not the only one. There was a lot of people inventing other things like Crystal, extreme programming, feature-driven development, Kanban. So if you look at this picture, you will see that Agile is an umbrella, and I will explain how it came into being. But actually many people in the world fought for how we can change our way of work in order to be helpful to our clients, in order to make valuable stuff, not ruin them, not make projects that fail, not waste money on something that we had a lot of enthusiasm for, and then we ended up, as you said, terrified and disappointed and whatnot. So these things, and Scrum is among them, were Agile methodologies. But at the time the processes were born, the Agile word was not there. It came only into being in 2001. When 17 people that developed Scrums, Kanbans, extreme programming, etc., gathered. So they understood they need to gather and to talk about the way of work for the future, because it was super clear that the way they worked was not good enough. Can you imagine how important that was? That changed a lot of that changed I think the face of the world, really. So they gathered, and for the first time they gathered, they quarreled, human nature. So Jeff wanted its Scrum to be the main one, and then Ron Jeffries wanted extreme programming to be the main one. So they didn't manage to agree what was the best methodology to be promoted to the companies and to the world. And then they had together for the second time. And what happens when you can't agree on one level and you still want to agree and to make some sort of agreement, so you have to go one level up. And since these are the processes, where did they have to go? They had to go and to find an consensus at the level of the values. And I really feel thankful for that. So they came up with something called Manifesto for Agile Software Development. Nowadays, you can really take out the word software because the word is not important anymore. It could be Manifesto for Agile Product Development, for Agile Project Development, for Agile Strategy Development, for Agile Government Development. Why is it so? Because it's an umbrella term. It is so widely defined as a set of values that everything that supports the values, whatever the format, whatever the method, whatever the methodology, can find its place below it. So that's agility. If they ask me, what is Agile? Agile is Agile Manifesto. And if I want to be more bold, I would say Agile is culture, because it is a system of shared values and principles. Here you can see the values. We talked about the values in the previous days. I think these values are diamonds. What they said when they agreed on having this manifesto was, we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value. And now look the first one. Individuals and their interactions over processes and tools. So human being in the first place. What does this mean? It says, if we have a problem, we won't go and look for more processes and more tools and more solutions. We will sit down and talk. And we will find what the solution is. And then we will test it. And if it's not working, we will sit down again and talk and look for some real options. So this manifesto is actually some sort of a, I don't want to use like super strong word, but it does recognize the importance of a human being. And then if you go further down, you will see that coming to the horse, we saw in the first picture, working software, working product, working government, working e-commerce, working e-government is much more important than having it written down on paper, all nicely put. So comprehensive documentation, okay, it should exist. But what we need, and we need it as soon as we can, in order to be able to test it and in order to be able to give feedback on it, is something that works. So we won't make a plan and then wait till the end, which in the case of huge projects is normally a year, 2, 4. I myself, I coordinated this European Commission for 4 years projects, where I had to say in February of this year, who is going to travel in February of 2024, and where is going to travel the person, and how much is going to cost. You can laugh. Sorry, I lost you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What was the last thing you heard?
Exactly the last thing you heard.
The last thing I said.
Last word was lost.
Okay, excellent. Good. So it was in this. Okay, that's it. So working software, working product, working something. We want to have it all the time working. Like even if it's super rudimentary, even if it's just the login functionality for a platform or e-government. Let's see if it works. Let's test it every now and then. Let's test it as soon as we can so that we can get the feedback and make it even better. Let's not wait to the end of the project and get disappointed, because that's going to happen if we wait that much time. And then the third one was the customer collaboration. This one says collaborate, don't negotiate the contract. This worked for me perfectly well. The project I coordinated, I forbid the contract negotiation at the start of the project. Because what happens at the start of the project, when you start negotiating the contract and you have like 18 partner institutions from 6 countries, everybody looks how to provide the budget. Like everybody would say, no, this budget, because you can't really plan. You know, you can't really say, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to deliver, because why can't you? Because you are creating something anew. There's an innovation, you don't know, you don't have a receipt. So I insisted on customer collaboration, so we collaborated, we had monthly meetings, and we did produce a valuable product without contract. Can you imagine that? No contract. And the last one is evolutionary. The last one says respond to change. It's more important than being able to follow a plan, because following a plan can be difficult, you know, but it's easy in terms of you know what to do. And when something as huge as this COVID happens, it's a huge disrupt. It really hits you. Then following a plan, you know, it's not the skill you need. You need to be able to respond to change. And I can tell you, and it's from my practice and also from some research, that companies that went agile before the COVID adapted much more easier to the COVID situation than the companies that didn't have the agility implemented. It's the feeling like it's okay, we are ready for whatever happens. It's not a problem. We don't say, no, wait. We just smoothly move to a different formation. That's what agility brings to organizations, being with families, pairs, teams, enterprises, governments, local administration, students, teacher community, it doesn't matter. It's the mindset.
Yeah.
And the last, go on.
Interrupt. Do you maybe want to give an example? And I also want to somehow emphasize, I'm really sorry to butt in, but I also want to emphasize that this is regardless of which sort of agile type of methodology they're using. So wherever they are under the agile umbrella, it's always easier to change and transform. Whether you decide in your organization that you're going to use, I don't know, Scrum, or that you're going to use Kanban, which will be the main topic that we're talking about, what's important is this, that you have this mindset that you're ready for the change. And even if it's not, and this is something that we mentioned yesterday, even if it's not a perfect model or the exact model, as long as you are working across silos, or no silos, as long as you are putting people into the center and you're under the agile umbrella, this helps you sort of get through change easier. So if you have some examples, I think this may also.
Yes, I can give you an example. For example, let's say I won't say the name of the company, but I will say the industry. 2 examples. One example is one bank. People immediately switched. Like they were so used to this flexibility of mind, like changing was their normal, you know. They were so used to giving feedback and to adapting and adjusting and asking themselves, does this work for us? How we can change it? What do we change? So that's the crucial thing. So when the COVID started, like it starts today, and tomorrow we are all online, we have the tools, we know exactly what to do, and the collaboration is super smooth. Meaning we set up the Kanban board in an Excel table, like nothing, no cost involved, in an Excel table, and people self-organized on how they're going to communicate with each other because they were used to self-organizing. It was such an easy thing to do. They didn't have to wait for their bosses or their managers to tell them, do this or that. They were empowered to make decisions on how they are going to organize. You see what I mean? And then day by day, it felt like really not much happened. The product grew, like the development was not disturbed at all. And all the obstacles met on the way, such as you can't really visit your customers, you know, because they were making some sort of a application for a tablet that agents would use with the customers to put in information in it. So you can't go visit your customers. Then the team would say, okay, let's think how we work around this, you know, how we work around this, how we make it digital. With this, I want to say, when you have the agile mindset and when you are in the process of agilifying the organization, actually you learn to think constructively. You learn to ask yourself, okay, what is the solution? What is the real option? You go towards the solution, not from it. So you take the challenge. And challenge is there always, and you are there to work around it, to work with it. So somebody said yesterday here that if we don't say problem, we say, I don't know, we don't say issue, we say exactly. And then one of my friends, one of my, let's say, agile mentors, once I talked about like challenge, you know, like, no, I said a problem, and she said like, no, it's not a problem. Then I said like, oh, okay, it's a challenge, you know. And then she said something that I will never forget. She said, what do you mean challenge? It's joy.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean?
I like also the comment of Dimis. He says, like physicists, management theorists, and practitioners have been trying to invent general theory of everything. Big egos try to impose their own as the greatest thing over design. It's better to accept that positive contributions come from many directions. So it's exactly about the mind shift and what we were just talking about. And my personal experience, even though we are now speaking about the details, while I was entering to the Agile, thanks to Tamara Strzentic, she was 3 years ago, she was trying to explain what is it about. And then piece by piece, we were introducing this concept. And I know that sometimes it may be idealistically presented, and the people may be simply trying to say, but this does not work. I will just reflect what I talked with Nikola Nikolov, who left because his daughter is just starting the first grade in the primary school. When exactly speaking what you told us to talk about, have we had any frustration regarding waterfall management? He says, no, I have never had. And I was surprised, and I said, like, how come? He said, I came from a private industry, software private industry, where agile as a concept was introduced by default. I was living it, I was doing it, I was thinking it. When I came into the public administration, of course, there was to a certain extent a lack of space and freedom to do exactly what has been done in the previous life. However, I was accustomed pretty fast because I just understood that I need to use hybrid. In a sense, something in between waterfall and agile, and everybody accepted it because finally everybody will look after the results. And of course, everybody should be at least psychologically positive and healthy. We understand that the majority of us do have this joy when everybody is happy around us. So it's also something that comes up after we have a good results.
Thank you, Warren. Yeah, it's well, you know, I created this movement, Agile Humans, because I really believe in this individualistic point of view. You know, when you have people with their experiences, and the experiences are so diversified, we don't learn from the same books anymore. You know, we learn from, I work with students, like I teach at the university, this is my 22nd year, And I can assure you, teaching like 10 years ago and teaching today, it's a totally different thing. You know, you have to customize what you say, because different people, different knowledge, different experiences, everything is different. And I think we can feel much more empowered today to co-create ourselves with the rest of the world, you know, than before, because everything is so available. Information is there. The only thing we can, and we have to be scared of, is how do we deal with that quantity of information? You know, how do we go through the mass and find what's valuable? So individuals and interactions, I think that's the key thing in product development, in value creation. We all know how to make cakes if we use the receipt, you know. I mean, we do. We can be less skillful and more skillful, but there's a you know, we know how to do it. There's a recipe, you know. But when we make something anew, and change, as Dimi said, is innovation, because you can't change. I mean, you can change for something known to something else known, but normally the process will be, yeah. Let's go on. I hope you understood this Agile umbrella, and now you get the clear picture of what Lean is, what Agile is, and what Scrum is, and Kanban is. Actually, maybe Kanban not fully yet. So just to sum up, Lean is philosophy adopted by Toyota to eliminate the waste and organize the production line, and it's called Toyota Production System, in order to have it more efficient. Then the guys from Tokyo University called it Scrum, for the Crossfunctional Teams of Toyota. Then the guys from software industry saw the word and read the concept and created Scrum methodology. Many other people created other methodologies influenced by who knows what. And then they gathered and they opened up this umbrella, not only for themselves, but for everybody, like for ourselves. We can have whatever methodology we want. So this slide illustrates the methodologies. So Scrum is one super discipline methodology. We won't go into details. We spoke about it yesterday when we spoke about the roles. Like there is this product owner, and there is this person that takes care of the processes, and then this cross-functional team that everybody works together, professionals, 3 to 9 members, and so on and so forth. It's very easy to explain. So Scrum is super ordered, made by this military guy, pilot, American pilot, Jeff Sutton. Very well explained, gives excellent results, but when you can have almost ideal situation, when you can have fully dedicated professional teams, when you can have super professional product owner, the person that knows what has to be done, and when you have somebody that really masters the process. So it's a very elite concept, a very, very elite concept. So you can use it in some parts of the organization, but my experience says, and it's not a short one anymore, it's 11 years working with small startups to insurance governance globally. It's super revolutionary and very hard to implement. So as you can see, the 14% of all the methodologies, according to the research, is other hybrid multiple methodologies. What does this mean is that the companies and the enterprises and the organizations, they don't use Scrum, they use the umbrella, they use the agility, and they make their own hybrids. So they use the first value of Agile and they say, let's sit down as individuals working in this team, in this company, in this organization. Let's agree on what is the process we are going to use and what are the roles we are going to have. and let's give it a name. So that's going to be our own Agile methodology. And I'm really happy to see that this percentage increases from year to year. So it was like last year, now it's at 14%. And I hope to see even more percentage in the next years.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but we're not seeing your screen if we're supposed to see.
Yeah, you're supposed to see.
Okay, we're not.
Sorry.
No problem.
Oh, and I explained it, but you will understand now.
I just realized when you were, Milos also asked when you were saying, as you can see, 54%.
Oh, sorry. So it's 45%
no problem. Probably when we lost you, then we lost the screen share.
We are back. We are Agile. So let's feedback and then we. So 54% Scrum, and now just relay the image to what I said, and then the 14% of other hybrid multiple methodologies. And
excuse me, Jasmina, what is this 54% of what is Scrum? Is it companies or is it
companies?
So companies who are practicing.
Exactly.
So
of all the research companies, and this is the research done, like this is the 14th year they do it. So it's a relevant research, let's say.
International?
Yeah, international.
Okay, so 54% of them use Scrum.
Yes.
In some way.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, one important thing. When you say they use Scrum, what we know, being Agile coaches that work with the companies, is actually it's not Scrum. It's something that got known as Scrumbat. Why? Because when you go there and you say, okay, you use Scrum, do you have a product owner? They would say, no, yes, we use Scrum, but we don't have a product owner. Or yes, we use Scrum, but we don't have a retrospective. Or they say, yes, we use Scrum, but our dailies are much longer. So it became known as Scrumbat, like Scrumbat. So it's not a proper Scrum. Why? Exactly because what I explained. It's very hard to implement it, very, very hard. You really have to have resources to be able to have it. And then you can see other methodologies here. 10% uses Scrum and some hybrid. 8%, imagine, uses Kanban. It's a combination of Scrum and Kanban, and so on and so forth. I really don't want to scare you with these names. It's not important. It's just there to illustrate, the spectrum of methodologies. But I do want you to go with one message here. Hybrid is an answer. So hybrid is an answer because no two teams are the same. No two organizations are alike. So no methodology can work for two different organizations. So you need your own methodology. You need your own hybrid. And one of the percentages I like the most is this 3%. I don't know. So they say they don't know what is the Agile methodology they're actually using. That's funny. That's really funny. Okay, let's move on. I hope this is not too boring. If it is, you can tell me. You can write. Let's pick up some feedback. Is this okay?
This is
I know
great.
it's very theoretical.
Very realistic kind of picture, and I was also wondering if, as you said, Scrumbat made me smile. If the community here can share any examples of how they may be practicing Scrumbat in their organization, if they are, would be helpful to hear.
We don't have much time, and the topic is huge. One thing I will share with you now that I just decided to do that. Initially, I didn't think about sharing the Agile Lean principles with you, but I will leave it here. Let me show you the slide. Can you see the slide? Yes. Okay, ICT kind of saying yes, so I will assume everyone can see it. So here you can see the 7 Lean principles, and of course a book. that you can read when you have time. It's an excellent book from Mary Poppendick. One of the main principles Toyota adopted as its DNA is eliminate waste. So that was my suggestion to you as well. Start with eliminating the waste with small projects. Then, of course, you have this amplify learning and see the whole, build integrity in empower the team. But these two are super interesting. Decide as late as possible and deliver as fast as possible. So deliver as fast as possible, that's all about agility and Scrum and cross-functionality. But this one, decide as late as possible, sounds awkward. It sounded to me when I first saw it. Maybe you know the principle as JIT, just in time. Like have it when you need it, and not before and not after that. What is the opposite of just in time? It would be just in case. So just in case, why do we learn at school all the history from time memorial to the contemporary events? Just in case, so that we know, what's there. But maybe we just need it just in time when we need it. So it's a totally different mindset, a totally different approach to learning, to production, to making, to creating, even to conversation. So decide as late as possible, or just in time, is something that actually made Kanban possible. So that was the principle. And I will explain now why. What you're going to see now, and you're seeing it now, is two pictures, one from Toyota and the other one from Disney, from software development. And the third one above, a Kanban card, a proper Kanban card. So let me explain this. This picture where you see the man on the left standing in front of something that looks like shelves with some cards, actually that's a proper Toyota Kanban table, let's say so. And the small cards that we can't see, we can't read, are the cards that you can see augmented here up, where it says part description, part number, and so on. So what Toyota did, Toyota used these cards to eliminate all sorts of waste. How? By echoing what's missing. I will explain. So they discovered that one of the wastes was having just in case many elements they need for the production, just in case. And they had to pay a lot of money for spaces that will hold the elements and so on. So they decided that was not very efficient nor effective, so not useful, and created a whole pull system, Kanban system of Kanban cards, to announce the flow, to say, hey, we have used 2 wheels. And then the echo would go further down the line, the production line, like the 2 wheels have been used, the 2 wheels have been, so that the guys that make the supply chain can be fed up properly. At time, just in time, not before needed, not too late, on time, just in time. I don't know if this makes sense. If it doesn't, please ask me questions and I'll try to explain.
You translate this example into some more close to us?
Yes, McDonald's, fast food restaurants. So if you go there and you look at what they have where the Big Mac stand, you will see the numbers, and then the numbers will change. They will have some signals there saying we have 7, but then you will see how they move the 7 backwards, so that the guy that has to provide more Big Macs knows that now it's 5, time to make more. So it's just echoing, like saying, now it's time to provide, now it's time to make more, now it's time to supply.
So now I understand why I like Agile, Kanban and all this stuff. I worked in the McDonald's. Yes.
So actually it's shortening up the time and the information becomes like symbols, you don't have to speak. They don't speak, they have symbols, they just signalize down the road to the first supplier, to the first raw material supplier, what has to be done and when. So they don't have many, I miss the word skladište. Can someone help me? Warehouses. So they don't have warehouses. It's just the constant flow of elements they need. And that's how they eliminated this waste of having to pay for the warehouses and have the materials eventually, not being used, because you never know how the demand is going to look like. So they adjusted the supply chain flow to the demand. That's what they did. And I don't know if there is people old enough to remember how the McDonald's were marketed once it came to Serbia, at least. That the burger is going to be delivered in actually no time, and we were shocked. I can't exactly remember what was the number of seconds, but I think it was something like 80 seconds or something like super strange. I know that we all were like, what? How are they going to make it in so little time? Do you remember that? Does anyone remember?
Hey, Jasmina, Selma asked, could you provide an example of this in public administration?
In public administration, the living example, I don't know that it has been done in public administration, but actually I think all sorts of digitalization or automation are a good example of this, because this is automation. This is like if we have automated the, let's say, document production, like whatever I need, I just go at some place and I type in something and I get it, and no one has to do anything about it. There's no queue, I don't have to wait, no queue. So wherever we eliminated queue, and wherever we eliminated like paper, we have a lot of paper in the shelves waiting for to be used for printing, for example. So that's a good example. I can look into it.
Maybe I could add, I don't know if Tamara, Ihana, or the others, Vladimir, have more better examples. The first thing that comes to my mind are one-stop shops like integrated service delivery. It automatically means that many different stakeholders or shareholders dealing with the same purpose to deliver product, process, protocol to the businesses, citizens, and other administrations have to correlate. So in this system, I think all of us, and once again, Albania seems to be the front runner in this, learned from Azerbaijan, from Georgia, from some more sophisticated in e-service aspect countries like Estonia and Finland. And I would another example that I would also pick is actually example from Latvia, Riga. Many of the institutions here, the ones, maybe Selma would remember this because she's a legal expert and a legal by the education. They have actually contemplated on the best possible way to coordinate the policies. And the centers of government that we also worked with within ReSPA's portfolio at some point were inspired by this so-called interinstitutional agency. What it meant at that time in Riga, it was 2013 when they established it. They actually tried to make correlations between coordination of policies, policy designers, and real users. And this was the attempt of first kind. I remember later on, this type of, so say, probation of the agile concept in the system was provoked based on this last example in Montenegro. They actually tried jointly with Sigma to make the identical pattern, and I'm uncertain at which stage is it now. And how successful in the implementation it is, but I remember that they tried to integrate centers of government work with the units within the Ministry of EU integration responsible for coordination of projects, and also some other vertical policies, and I can't remember the third party, but principally there was like a trilateral approach. So that's at least how I would understand this concept translated into the practices that we are already witnessing. So I don't know if anybody else has something more tangible and more clear than what I just mentioned.
Is it okay? Just Jasmina, please correct me if I got it wrong, but this is a case we did also in one of the public institutions in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we used the Agile because there was also knowledge of the Agile in one of the institutions, and quite a big readiness also from the management and the team. So as delivering first and designing a client satisfaction survey, we started actually in in sorting out the waste, which we saw, the team actually saw what should not be part, goal, and the mission of the client satisfaction survey, because it was the first time the institution was conducting such. So we removed what we didn't need, and then the team set up a Kanban table, very simple, with to do and the done tasks. And because we had to structure the questions, and we had to structure the to segment the groups of the population and the institutions which will be questioned about the satisfaction of the services. So then we collected everything again, also on the table with the findings, and then we got to the very nicely and very smoothly to the improvement plan. And this is actually a very basic knowledge or utilization of the Agile and also of the Kanban methodology. Very simple also to use on every day basis.
Yeah, but that's how you start. That's a good start. That's excellent. Yeah, there is really. It seems like simple, but actually you can't start complicated Kanban. I will explain in a bit. You have to
just sorry, simple. I have also one good example. Maybe Tamara, if she's still awake, can complement this. But last year we have had the mutual visits. I was actually visiting her team, and I saw that they're making some wonderful practical models of getting the people from different ministries working on the same thing, that is to understand how they will provoke, maintain and sustain multifunctional teams. Something like change agents. Mm-hmm. And it was a bit odd to me. I was just asking myself, how does this function? And she did explain that the institutions, in our case ministries, are getting the invitation to be part of this innovation office. That is probably something that we could reinvent within the ministries of public administration. And they were offered a 7-week syllabus training where they would, instead of going every day to their job, actually be part of the team who would introduce all these different models and practice it. So I was just 5 working days over there. So I saw that they were experimenting with StrengthsFinder, with the Agile, with the design thinking and many other methodologies. But they were very intensively provoked to act, to produce, to consult, to express. And I also understood the beauty of these things. So finally, when they're getting back, they get these alumni with whom they're constantly working, mentoring, coaching. They do also interact between one another, the ones that were part of the team, ones being brought back to their institutions. So there is informal interministerial dialogue brought and maintained by those alumni, plus they have mentors in this office. Tomorrow, maybe some unit for change management within ministries of public administration, however it may be called. We already did a lot within quality management, and we were actually trying to institutionalize. Many of the countries did accept this model. Many are already successful, like Bosnia and Herzegovina, North Macedonia. So I would assume that this type of approach would be mainstreamed and would not inevitably lead towards huge rejection and so on. Of course, you would say, we don't have 7 weeks. Okay, let's try with 5 days. Let's try something similar to this, and then maybe upscale it and maybe make it like on long run. So this is something that again goes on another side. How do we prepare the people for this? Because previous 2 examples were something that we're already witnessing. But this was more like methodological approach to, if you would decide to do it, how you may plan to do it in your home institutions.
Just to clarify one thing, when I got the question like, are there examples of this Kanban thing in the government? So I actually answered one part of the question, which is, are there examples of this principle, like in McDonald's, you know, like when you have when you shorten when you communicate by signals, and then you don't have these warehouses, and you don't have. So that was my answer. But the question was, are there Kanbans as we know it today, not like as in Toyota, plenty of Kanbans, like plenty of implementations in the government. And actually I prepared one link. It's too long to have it here, but I will share the link to you in the chat, so you can watch it on your own time, on how it got implemented in the government of San Jose. So I suggest when we finish today, I just gather all these links and I send it to you all together, so you don't lose it in the chat. Do you agree with that? Okay. There is plenty of implementations of the Kanban board as we know it today that came from software. But one thing came to my mind, that probably, although I don't know, at least in the region here, if it has been used, Kanban for procurement purposes can be awesome for sure. This pull system, you know, when at least at our university, when we make procurement at the beginning of the year, you need a tender and stuff. So people say what they need, and then normally it gets wasted because many of the items we procured are not used, or we lack some of the items like in November that we couldn't remember in January. And this Kanban system of pull system, like, you know, works well, but then you have the wall called tendering that is a yearly process. So it shows you pretty clear what is the impact of Kanban and what is the structure that needs to be changed so that you can have efficiency for efficiency. So you have to change at least the number of tenders per year when you can buy supplies and procure stuff. Does this make sense? I can see Nadica now on Tihan. Okay. So I will share the link on how some of the governments, the city governments, use Kanban. But let me tell the story about this this picture you see here, where this is. I will just make it bigger and share it in here. Sorry. This person. Do you see it bigger now? You should. So
I need to say what is written on his T-shirt.
Yes.
Rock down there.
Something like Vinio, something like that. Yes. I don't know, rocks. So this is the Kanban board adapted from software from Toyota. Doesn't have much to do with it. Some principles. Okay. Now we can forget about Toyota and concentrate on this. So when this David Anderson inspired himself by what Toyota did, he created this type of visualization and method that he called Kanban for software, okay? And now today we call it Kanban for development. So it's a board with some post-its on it. And this is a board in Disney. The cross-functional team uses the board to develop some sort of a game. It is in the main corridor, in the main entrance in Santa Monica. So everybody that enters the building has to pass by this radiator of information. And when people talk about the product, they gather in front of this. So it is so visual, so transparent that you can't literally avoid it. So you have to see. That's the characteristic of a good Kanban board. Here you can see some stuff like backlog and story. Here you can't see it well, but it says to do, and here is the doing, and there is probably the testing, and there is, I guess, the done. So it's from the ideation of the product, from the start of the project, the idea, to the final, to done, right? So you can see it all in one place, and you can see the progress. So you can see what is the status physically it's not written in words. It's not just abstract words saying in progress, testing, done, but it's physically separated. What is in to do, what is in progress, and what is in done. Very important for our brain, because our old visual brain thinks better if we separate visually the chunks of information. Remember this. So whenever you can separate information in visual chunks, it will be better for thought processing and thinking and conclusions. Again, the book. So this is the book. Who wants to read further and to deepen the knowledge in Kanban? It's written in 2007, the book, although the whole thing started in 2004. There is a lot of literature, and I will send you the reading list as well. And I just rushed to come to these principles of Kanban. So let's see what happens here. This is something that you can use tomorrow. This is something that you can use even today if you go back to your work at 2 o'clock, let's say. So the first principle says, start with what you do now. So you don't have to change anything. Start with what you do now. What does this mean? It means that you can visualize the work you do. You write down on Post-its, or you write down on some electronic tool, what's your plan for today? Like, this is my plan for today. That's it, like my to-do list. Then when you are done with that, the next principle says, and then agree to pursue incremental evolutionary change. So this means that once I visualize what I do today, tomorrow I will have the opportunity to think about what happened today. And I will have the opportunity to learn something. How? Well, I will see tomorrow that what I planned for today actually didn't happen. You know, many times we have these to-do lists with a lot of items, or we think we will be able to do something, and then we are not. We don't do that. So let me see your faces, and let me find a person that has to-do lists and does it all from a to-do list. Do we have that here? No? Yona is the one. Can you speak, Yona?
Sorry, is it okay now? Because I was,
yes, okay.
I keep getting interrupted. I'm on my phone, and I keep getting interrupted, and the whole thing goes away. It disconnects.
This is a perfect context. Multitasking for the two lists.
Yeah. So can you? Yeah. Tell me again. Can you please?
So do you have to-do lists? Do you make to-do lists? Do you manage to stick to the to-do list and do nothing more, nothing less, just what you plan?
Well, without to-do lists, I can't do anything in my life. From a professional side to personal, it's everything revolved around to-do lists and lists. I can't function. Obviously, I get to do more than the to-do list, but if I don't accomplish what is on my to-do list, then it's not good. It's not good.
So you do more than what's on your to-do list?
Well, I try to, but usually at least to finish everything that's on my to-do list. And that's on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a project basis, on everything, there's a to-do list.
We will go to, you should create some course, training course, and we go there and learn. Anybody else? So my experience is that people tend to have more than they can do, especially the ambitious people. And even if you try to keep it simple, you will get tasks from other people. So you will have to be reactive, as Yona said now. Many things come from the requests from other people. So you have to do more than initially planned. And the problem with this is that we don't learn from that.
Jasmina, can I give a crazy example to this?
Yes, of course, crazy example.
I remember, I think it's more than 10 years ago when I heard about it, and it really reflects our reality. I was speaking with colleagues who were dealing with the projects in the education and in Serbia, and they were invited to the study visit to Ireland, which was finally realized. So everybody from the team from Serbia had to prepare some presentations, professors, teachers, and so on. And the reaction after a very successful and interesting presentation on the successes, results, and of course, future plan for the time slot of 5 years was amazing. But then when they were discussing the plan for the future of Serbian part for 5 years, I repeat, they were a bit silent, Irish colleagues. And then when they were provoked to reflect on this, they said, but this is a plan for 50 years. And then the overall, what I'm trying to say, what we are also witnessing many times in the Balkans, individually, but also as a teams and as an institutions, we are usually making megalomaniac plans. And not always the indicators help us. Sometimes they clean up a bit of this mess and then make a certain articulation of what is possible and what is optional. However, I think this is quite good, and I like the word incremental in this second principle, because it really reminds us that step by step and achieving one piece and then another is something that we can easily uptake, and we usually forget, because many times we are satisfied only when we have a full product, the full picture, full service, when everything is over there, but not necessarily. So thank you for sharing with us, especially this very second principle, which provoked me to give this example. So megalomania is something that we are many times confronted with when we want to make realistic plans. So to-do list versus incremental planning and evolutionary change is very important for me.
There is much more to it, but I just want to explain this simple, thanks for the example, this simple concept of the evolutionary change here is when you or your team, imagine you write down today whatever you have to do. Tomorrow morning you appear there for 50 minutes, something that we call like a daily stand-up meeting, and you look at the list from today and you say, well, this is done, okay, but this is not done. And then the communication starts and you say, but why? Why I skipped this? Why I didn't do this? And the answer normally would go around, well, something else came up, or I didn't have time, or I wrongly estimated, or I just didn't feel like doing it. You will learn the answers to what happened. Like, why didn't you do that? And then today, like the next day, so you will plan better. You will say, well, I was capable of doing like 7 things, 2 big, 5 small. Maybe I plan for 7 again, just not over plan, just not put 13. So if you start like that day by day, you will learn what is your capacity, what is the capacity of your team, what are the weak sides. Like at 4 in the afternoon, I always feel super sleepy. So whatever I plan for the 4, I can't do it. I need help there. So this promotes meaningful conversations and learning day by day. That's why it's evolutionary. You can try it on yourself. It will show you, at least I found out that I was a super big hypocrite, I would say to myself, yes, I can do this. And then I would have like 17 items there. And then I would do 9. But next day I would say, no, today I will do the 17, And then again, you don't do that. And I teach people, I'm an educator, I teach them how to do that. So I really had to be very tough with myself and to learn that it's 7, it's not 17. And it's really easy then to plan your life because you know your capacity, or if there's something really, really important and you really need 9, you look and ask for help, or you delegate. And that's how you create bonds and partnerships and bigger mission. Because if it's bigger than you, then you need help. And bigger than you means you can't do it alone. It doesn't fit, you have more desires, so you need partnership. That's the evolutionary change, that's the evolutionary part of this. Imagine within the team, it really opens up hearts and people speak, and this good balance of work and life comes into place because you are very accepting then. You have to accept that somebody had a headache and it was really hard to work, and you have to accept that you have a colleague that has problems with coming on time. So let's see how we help you. and stuff like that. So it's creating this humanistic, encouraging context, and creates safety space for people to fail and to learn fast from the failure, because it's day by day. It's not year by year. We learn every day. And then once you have that in place, you will hear like, yes, you know, but then people react with fear if you're gonna change their roles or their payment or their position or their authority. So Kanban tells you, it doesn't matter really. So keep the current process, keep the current roles, keep the current responsibilities and titles. It doesn't matter. Start with what you have and then learn day by day. And what happens today or tomorrow and looks super scary and fiery will not look that scary in a month time. It will be more acceptable because a lot of communication happened, a lot of openings happened, a lot of risks analysis happened, and people simply come to terms. So it's really easy. You just start with what you have, and you can start with yourself. What do I have? Let's visualize that. And the last one among the principles is encourage acts of leadership at all levels in the organization. So we can understand that this in many, many ways, but I will offer you one. So whenever you stand in front of this table, of this Kanban board, and you have this meaningful conversation, and if there's a colleague, doesn't matter the title, or doesn't matter the hierarchy level the colleague comes from, if there's an initiative, like why wouldn't we do this in order to change something or to eliminate waste or to make it better, say yes. Whatever it is, say yes. That's encouraging acts of leadership, because what you're encouraging there is the ownership, the initiative, and the experiment. So evolution comes with experimentation, and it goes hand in hand. So whenever you can, support experiments, especially knowing that it's short amount of time before the experiment fails. So the damage won't be big. And then what are the practices supporting the principles? The practices are also, and we mentioned a lot of those, like visualize the workflow, create your own Kanban board, make it super simple, make to do, in progress, done. And try to discipline yourself in really having it in an accurate state. You can work on only one thing at a time. We think we can work on more things. Right now, and I know that by myself, so don't think that I want to point on somebody. So we are on online calls, and then we handle an email, then there's a phone call, we listen to the webinar. It's this context switching all the time. Like, it's not just a multitasking, because there's no multitasking. You do one thing at a time. It's just like you are in 3 different contexts and at the same time, meaning in the same hour. It's very damaging for how we are conceived. So we are not good at it. We are much better at focusing. So when you visualize the workflow, just keep in mind, there's one thing you can be focused at a time. So have one thing in progress culture. Don't cheat yourself. Don't have 3, because it's one that you can work on. Once the one is done, you can pull in the next one. So that's why Toyota understood that very well, the pull-in system. So once you spend something, you can have more. And they call it limit work in progress. This means my limit for the work in progress is 1, because I can work on only one thing. Maybe I can handle 2, I work on 1, but then every 10 minutes I check something. Okay, that's acceptable. But what is the limit work in progress for my team? If I have 7 members, maybe it's 7, maybe it's less than 7, because we need to help each other. We need to work in pairs. So what you do, you actually count. And you say, today my team did, I don't know how many items, and let's limit this work in progress, and so on and so forth. So you work with this learning on how efficient I am, how much I can do in a limited amount of time.
Yes. There may be a relevant question in a chat box.
Sorry, I don't see the chat. Can you share?
Oh, I can. Yeah, I'll read it. Vladan is asking, how do we focus on one thing, as most of us civil servants work few jobs and try to multitask on daily basis? I think it goes back to how do you quantify how long everything takes and prioritize accordingly?
Again, that's an excellent question. And it's not, trust me, it's not only the public services. It's everywhere you go where there's a huge organization with hierarchy and a complex portfolio, like a lot of things are going on. So the answer is always the same. There's no answer. So you have to start with what you have and think about what's wrong with it. Like if the multitasking is the problem, and it is, there is a lot of projects going on in a day, on a daily basis. So you ask yourself, can I limit the number of projects I work on a daily basis? Can I work on only 3 in a day? Maybe I don't have to work on the same 3 projects every day, you know? Maybe I can have super dedicated time slots for each of the projects, and then I switch off my phone and everything. So reduce the level of interference. And how you're going to do that, it will depend on with whom you work with, what is the number of the project, how important they are. I have seen situations in which, and I trust me, I did, and it was not once. We had a portfolio of 10 projects, we just cut it to 2. Because at some point, you have to do that. Otherwise, you will end up with the following situation. There's a meeting, and there's one person that has to be involved in almost all the projects because the expertise is in that person. And we don't have 2 people with the same expertise there. So there's a meeting they call splitting up the field. So what they do, 10 project managers come to Philip and they cut Philip, meaning cut his time into small chunks that they can use him. And I got really scared when I saw that because it's a human being, you know, it's not a piece of paper. You can't really cut it. So Philip was, of course, like, I can't say no, because if I say no, I will get fired or I will suffer some consequences. So he was really trying to do his best to serve all the projects. And of course, what happened? He got sick. He got sick. So you don't have him anymore. So you cut it into pieces and there's no food. Now what happens then? Then you work around. You know, then you find your way because you can't stop. And now the question is, how is it possible when we ruin the person, then we can find the way out? Why do we have to get to that point? You know, we don't have to. And then what we agreed on was like, okay, this is the capacity we have, and the capacity is for 2 projects. So let's do these 2 projects as you know, like meaningfully and to the end. And then we will see what happens next. What happened? Nothing. So they did 2 projects and they took more projects and so on and so forth. So nothing bad will happen if you just cut off what you can't make, because at the end of the day, you will not be able to make it. It's simple. Have I answered the question?
Vladan is the one who asked it.
Yes, I agree with you. I'm sorry I didn't hear all your presentation because we have issues there. And that is why I ask this. Usually we work much more than one job, and it's sometimes it's okay to say, okay, for this week I will work on this case, but usually it's not that easy, especially when we have a leak of employee. So we need to manage more tasks, not because it's your jobs, but you need to jump in another office to help people. So that is important to divide obligation, to divide with your mainly task, and to explain management that it's not possible to jump from one topic to another.
Excellent, excellent what you said. So the answer, actually you gave it. You gave the answer. The answer is individual accountability. The answer is if I have too much on my plate, I have to say no. Okay?
It's easy to think that than to really say.
I know, because that's the part of the reactive. I say no, but then it has to go hand in hand with, but let's try and do this. So no to this.
In an assertive manner, sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to be assertive.
And then it's really like that. It's really, you know, sometimes organizations, they can't see very well because it's not visualized what's on the person's plate. You know, you have to go and explain, and then no one listens because, you know, they're high stakes at high interest. So it's much better if you can visualize your backlog and bring the person there and say, where do you want me to put this? This is my limit.
That's a great point, Jasmina, because a lot of my team members work on different teams. We use GitHub to visualize every single team member's, you know, backlog and what they're working on. That way they can tag their peers to help them on certain issues.
What's GitHub and how to blah blah?
Another thing that could be valuable to mention is what we have done to provide an opportunity for everyone in our team to step up and take a lead. We are trying to, as often as possible, identify discrete tasks and opportunities for someone to step up and take a lead. Like this week, we're starting a speaker series and learn series, but you know, we are looking for people to step up and essentially to start to host that. So that was one of the discrete tasks we put, and someone on our kind of table of things that we want to get done, and then a team member would say, okay, I'm available. But having that all kind of in the Kanban board transparent, it allows for people to sign up and see what are the discrete tasks and how long it's going to take to do something. It promotes the transparency, and also it gives people an option to kind of come in and take a lead. So that I was going to add that based on what you were saying earlier.
Vladan wants to say something.
Yes. Okay, it's night at Tamara place. Tamara, imagine today when you go to office and you get a totally different task, different question. How long in your mind you need to switch from one issue to another one? Now it's question how long we can prepare ourselves to jump from one task to another. It's not easy to explain self, your brain, that you need to forget one thing and to jump on another one. That is the main problem. When you need to manage in self, you understand what I mean?
Yes. So
it's very stressful. Yeah.
I would say one of the things that we encourage our teammates to do is literally like prioritize their workload. What is the priority 0, 1, and 2, and 3 at any given week? I think as you go day by day and you see all different tasks that you're being assigned, you can then step back and start to document them and create that kind of list of things. Then the next time you talk to your manager, you can say, here are my constraints, and here is how you'll get the best out of me as a team member. But you can also connect it to another module that we introduced at the beginning of this convening, Strengths Finder. If you've done strengths-based report, you can share with your manager, here's my strengths. I'm really good with, I'm an activator, or I'm like an achiever. I'm really good at these specific things. So I would, that's another kind of aspect of this that we encourage in teams. Leverage and leverage the best strengths on your team that you have. I don't know if this is something that is possible to do on your team, right, Vladan, but think through your superpowers and how can you get other folks on your team to jump in and help on the tasks that they're asking you to take a lead on? How do you spread it on your team members?
Muted. Unmute yourself, Alan. We can't hear you. We can't hear you, Vladan. Oh
no.
We can't hear you. Oh. He has we can't hear you. You're muted. He'll get it, I think. Now, we didn't hear you. We didn't hear you. You were talking to somebody else, maybe. It's okay. One more thing from this Kanban practices, I just want to highlight one more thing, and that's this make process policies explicit. So make agreements on how we work. What is when we will consider we are done? Like, what is the definition of done? We are done when we tested it, or we are done when we just released it? You know, how many errors it could have. Stuff like that. So make your process policies explicit. Whenever you have one nicely cooked, you write it down and you agree on it. That's like a law. You know, that's something that is above people, and that's the system, strong enough to guide you, but not too strong to ruin you. So that's how you build the walls and how you build the guardrails that serve you, by making agreements. Dimis.
May I say something? I'm looking at the principles, and what you just said is, when you have a process, agree on it and implement and respect it. I'm looking at the Kanban principles and practices that you have. It's a very tidy list. There are two little parts which might be a little too tidy. The first one is respect the current process, roles, responsibilities, and titles. This is very Japanese. And yes, this is where you are. You're working in an organization. You can't be an anarchist all the time. But can you be an anarchist a little bit of the time? Because there must be times where you have to challenge the processes and the roles and the responsibilities. And that, in a sense, is also what Scrum is about. And then the other one says, encourage acts of leadership at all levels. And sometimes acts of leadership are also acts of disobedience. Sometimes. So I am not advocating for permanent chaos. But what I really liked from what I just caught one phrase that you said, Jasmina, and I liked it a lot. You have a process, just agree on it and do it. So rather than respect processes, is respect processes, but keep reinventing them all the time and make it something movable. I always find that in public administration, people are saying we have very heavy processes. We have things that are built in stone. You can't do this without getting 5 permissions, and then to get one of the 5 permissions, you need another 10 permissions and all that. And we're all very top heavy. So I would say that what you just said, I think, is a crucial part. Reinvent your processes.
Thanks, Dimis. You know, it's sometimes I have this feeling when I stand in front of the Kanban. It's almost like respect everything you have, because tomorrow you won't have it. You know, tomorrow you'll have something else to respect, because it will change. You know, the agreements change day by day. So what you have today, perfect. Tomorrow it will be gone. You will have something else. And it's very fluid. You know, it's very. And the good part is that it's so. The change is so slow. You know, that slow in terms day by day. But you end up at the month, at the end of the month with a super huge change. And then you tell yourself, how did this happen? You know, look where we started, look where we are now. And no aggressive move has been made, no revolutionary thing, many small acts of rebellion. That's true. Many small disruptions and many small initiatives like, I will do this, let's do that, that got encouraged. So I know banks, like huge banks, that started with one Kanban board in one HR department, and then everybody that entered the department, they would say like, what's this? And the other ones will explain, and then they would want it at their own premises. And then you have like tens of Kanbans all around the building, and people talking in front of it. So the day number 1, when they had one Kanban, and the day number 20, when they had 10 Kanbans, it's not the same process anymore. It's totally different. You know, it's very powerful, and it doesn't scare you. That's my point. Let's go on. So transparency, that was one of the things. One of the things that helped me understand why agility to myself, because this huge project, it was millions of euros, I had to coordinate. I was really scared for many reasons, you know, that I will end up without it and it will be taken from me or something like that. So I really needed, when I looked for agility, I really looked for project management methodology that will help me have full transparency, almost like a radical transparency of, you know, not only actions, but only budget spendings and decisions and everything. And, you know, I was very good at writing the project. I was very good at negotiating. I was very good at convincing people, and I was very good at not giving up. But once I got it, I understood that I'm not very good at managing it. So I had to learn. And then I looked for the project management methodologies. And there was this funny thing called Scrum. And the description I read, and trust me, it was on Wikipedia, there was something like, it promotes transparency, and I was done. When I read that, I just looked for the training, and I went to the training, and everything else is history. So it was in 2009. And ever since then, I think this is the main thing, especially in the public administration. So whenever you can have radical transparency, and I know it's not easy, it's really not easy. Transparency can be also misused, and yeah, I don't want to use stronger words. Well, whenever you can, practice it, exercise it, like have it, because otherwise, whatever you do, if it's not transparent and visible, it will not work. It will be prone to becoming a victim to whatever egos of politics is going on. So I don't have more advice on this. I can just tell you that it goes hand in hand with a second value I want to talk about today, which is courage. Yeah. So Kanban board, this is how it looks like. This is how it looks like. And I will ask you one thing now. Take a minute or two in total silence. Take a paper, take a pen, because tomorrow we will see each other, right? So take a pen, write down whatever you have to do today. Write your to-do list for today. And make it like this. Make it like A4 paper or whatever size, and just form the columns to do, doing, done, and just write down what you have to do today. I will do that too. when you are done, just put up the finger so I know. The thumbs up.
Jasmina,
Mm-hmm.
I have a practical question. I was just thinking about it because, so for example, when we're talking about this personal Kanban list, and I believe you have some, and I also try to have some with more or less success. But so, what do you do in terms of level of detail?
Mm-hmm. So what I have
For
is
example,
actually.
let's say there are some emails that you want to answer, some phone calls that you have to make, or whatever, you know, during the day, or that are important to you. How do you treat these? I mean, this is also in terms of business. I think it's also a relevant question.
Yeah, it is. It is. So what you find out once you start with this small to-do list is that you actually need a bigger backlog. So you need to know what your life is focused on in these days. So I have this backlog list where I work with one client, not two. I have some activities, there are daily activities, and I have a dedicated time slot in a day when I answer emails. So I don't answer emails all day long. And it's super dedicated. So there I call people, I answer emails, I do whatever needed. And then I have this academic career, like a big time chunk, right? Then I have some activities there. So I keep it always time boxed and with a dedicated time slot. So I'm pretty much sure like that now at this very moment, I haven't got any email or I don't have any urgency because it's totally controlled in the terms of everybody knows that I'm here. So I don't need to think about anything else because it's visible. Who sees that? My best friends, or I have my calendar shared with my best friends, my family, and my coworkers.
Great.
But it's strange. It's strange, but it took me a while to get there, and then I understood I had to do that. And of course, you fail. Of course, you always fail. It's that's how it is. You have to live with that. Mm.
No, but really, the level of granularity is, you know, for me, this is a challenge. You know,
it is
to get it just right so that it works for me.
And for me, it's the quality issue as well. Like it's not only can I do it, but now you have to think, can I do it well? You know, and what is the definition of well? Do I need more time to make it more, you know, to enjoy? Because I can enjoy only when it's nicely done, and so on and so forth. So, do we have our to-do list? Okay. So I will ask you one thing. From time to time during the day, go to the to-do list and just see what has been done and just you know, find your system, self-organize how you're going to keep the track of your actions. And tomorrow we'll see what happens. Okay, good. These are some Kanban board examples just to cheer up this, like this is in Hamburg and someplace in New York, I think. If you walk the streets, not now because everybody is under lockdown, but if you walk the streets before, you could see these Kanban boards on the glasses, like whole buildings would be covered with these post-it notes, and many teams working in this fashion. Of course, you have a lot of Kanban boards that are like online tools, like 30 commercial producers of Kanban boards. And of course, I will suggest one that is free, so you can use it with whomever you want. And that one is this Trello board. So here you have the print screen, but I will show you the Trello board as a real thing. Just let me do that here. So this is the Trello board. I took the print screen off. Trello is one of the let's say Kanban producers, okay? And it's highly interactive, so it's super editable, very easy. You can add another list, like you can say waiting, it's so super easy. You add a card, you say waiting for Marco, for Marco to something.
Is it free?
It's totally free, and you can use it with as many users as you want. So perfect for your government jobs and the public administration. So you can create it, you can invite people, and you can share it. You can have privacy. So everything is free. Of course, there is some premium options, but you don't need it. Trust me, you don't need it. You can do many things here. You can open the card. Look, it looks really nice. And here you can add members. Like I can be assigned to this card, or I can even assign myself, as I just did it. You can have labels and say this is in the green zone. We are well on this, and you can have checklists and say thing 1 and thing 2 and thing 3. And so on. So then you can check the list once you're done with the item, and it keeps the track. So here you know I did 1 out of 3. You can have due dates like let's finish this tomorrow, and attachments as many as you wish, from computer, Trello, Google Drive, Dropbox, Box, OneDrive. Attach a link. You can attach a link. And then you can have some nice covers. You know, you can put up some nice photos like this one. And it looks really nice. Some important information that can be visibly seen, easily seen visually, like easily accessible. You can track your time. You can learn how long it took you. And if you have big data there, you can learn a lot about yourself. You can move the card, you can copy the card, make template, watch, archive, share, and finally delete. So it's really, it's a really good tool, very easy, very user-friendly, no training needed. So what I did here, I said present Kanban method is done, introduce the values and principles, so this is also done. And we talked about the transparency, we talked about the Kanban as a weight, and now we will have to go into presenting courage. So it's so easy. I go back to the presentation. Do you have any question about these tools?
If I can just add something. Yep. Thank you, Jasmina, for everything. So I was using Trello previously too, and somehow I use it for specific things on specific projects to collaborate with people. I didn't use it like more holistic, and I think I will start doing it now because this whole Kanban method Trello perfectly incorporates into that, because you can easily create your lists. Backlog, to-dos, progress, etc. And what I wanted to share, interestingly, or maybe it's not interesting, I don't know, that the guy who recommended Trello to me was working in the software development industry. So, and he showed me how they have dealing with the multiple projects. So when I say multiple projects, like 20 different projects at the same time, Trello helped them keep track and keep progress. So I learned something from that industry.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I use it for my own company. I use it for students. So it was really easy for me to switch from offline teaching to online teaching, because they're used to Trello and Zoom and everything else, because we organize our teaching there. And I know many commercial companies, like many like pharmaceuticals or like big companies, they use Trello. Okay, so here we go. Courage. What you see now, and I really wanted this to present to you, is again Scrum. And you will say, what now? Why Scrum? We are talking about Kanban. Well, Scrum as well, because we talked about Kanban principles and practices, but look, we said transparency is one of the principles, yes. And then this inspection and adaptation, that's experimentation, that's empiricism. And they say that those are the 3 pillars of Scrum. So you experiment and you do that in a transparent way. You share information. If you don't share information, you're slow. You're slow. You're slower than you can be. You are worse. Because, if you have proper information, you can make better things. So these 3 pillars are the pillars of Scrum and the pillars of everything Agile, actually. So empiricism, experimentation, and transparency. now the 5 values below, and we already mentioned focus. I want to talk about courage now, is the one that complements perfectly well transparency. So even if you take out these extraction adaptation and you just leave here transparency and courage, that's a lot. And I think without transparency and without courage, you can't have real change. So what is courage? Courage is to choose. Courage is to prioritize. Courage is to say no. And I would like to illustrate this with this Matrix movie. I don't know if you remember the end of the Matrix when Neo comes to the architect and has to choose. You know, there are 2 doors. And he says choice. The problem is choice. And then the answer he gets from the architect is actually the incremental development of Matrix. He says, yes, when we made it flawless, sublime, and then we expected triumph. But then you people, you know, you had some of your stuff that we forgot, you know, to take into consideration. So we had to remake Matrix. And I can't remember anymore how many Matrices were made, but Matrix was made in an agile fashion. So when Neo comes there and says choice, the problem is choice, what is he actually saying is, I choose to face the reality of my role in an incrementally developed world, or I just choose not to see that and to live the Matrix life as planned for myself. So I think this is a very powerful message. Like, what do we choose? Do we choose to see? And then once we see, we act, whatever the action is. Or we choose to see and ignore it. If we don't see it, we can't really choose. You see what I mean? You can even answer. So that's the problem of the choice. And then there is this, the problem of prioritization. And we talked about it, you know, like to-do list, they are prioritization. But nevertheless, one thing is very important here. Less is more. It's one of the principles, like probably the I don't know how to say that, but I can't say the main, but almost the main principle of agility. And you can read it in many documents, and it's super absurd. It's paradoxical. It says like this: maximize the amount of work not done. So you wake up in the morning and you don't ask yourself, what else can I do? What can I add to this? How much can I do? Because we think that more is better, right? More is more. But actually less is more. So you have to ask yourself something like this: my time is limited. I want to be able to use it for things I like. So what from this list I have, I cannot do? Marica.
Just to add on to what you're just explaining is the principle called kill your darlings, meaning when you're preparing something, especially when it comes to written materials, whatever you like the most of what you've written, then you have to delete. Kill your darlings.
Kill your darlings. So thank you, Nadice. So I'm going to ask you to look back at your to-do list and to somehow highlight the things you can not do today. Like maximize the amount of work not done for today.
Yeah, that's very good advice.
And let's see what happens tomorrow. Did we do the must things? Just let's leave time there. When you're done, you can show your thumbs up. So perfection is achieved when there's nothing more to take away. Okay. Well, we're approaching the end of today's gathering. I want to finish this values and principles presentation with this great Japanese proverb. And it says, vision without action is a daydream, and action without vision is a nightmare. And if you try and visualize now the Kanban board, you will see that actually there you have a visualization of vision directly linked to the action. So you can always see what was the idea you started with, what was your vision, and what is the action you're taking, and what is the status of your action, and how much of it is done. So you can adjust. So keeping it visually connected, the big idea you started from, and that also relates back to the question Tamara asked, like, how do I organize my small things, you know? Well, keep it directly linked to the big items in your vision, like my life, my health, my sports, my job, what in my job, my friends, the project we are working in that is like a temporary thing. So whatever is important, have it on the left side of your Kanban board. Like those big chunks, your heads and your hands and your head and your legs. Like what makes you, what are you, who are you, what's your identity? And then have these small items directly related to these big chunks of your identity.